Hi everyone, this is Raquel Nedden with Performance and Assessment in the Virtual Classroom, and this is our week 5, our last week of the session. So this is our Google Hangouts on Air Live, and we'll wait just a few minutes while viewers join in the session, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, the Q&A is turned on. So if you'd like, on the bottom left-hand corner of your YouTube video link where it's streaming, there's a little button that says join the conversation. And if you click on that, you will be taken to the actual engagement part of the Hangout, which is the question and answer session, and you'll be able to type a question below. So I will do my best to kind of scan and make sure that the questions are being answered as they come up. So I will do my best. All right, so we'll wait just a few minutes while our viewers come in, and then we'll get started on our talk tonight on special populations in the virtual classroom environment. And if you're just joining us, make sure you go ahead and be a part of the conversation by clicking the bottom left-hand corner of the screen that says join the conversation, and you'll be able to connect with us and then type your questions in the Q&A button. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our presentation, and this session will be recorded and we will send it out in a link form in our final week announcements this week. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit about special populations in the virtual classroom, and I just want to let everyone know that I am not a special education teacher. However, I did work with a lot of special education administrative staff to help implement accommodations in the virtual classroom. So I'm familiar with the accommodations, although I can't claim to be an expert on any one of them. So I just wanted to let you know that right from the start. However, I do know that most LMS systems and most virtual environments can accommodate about every type of needed accommodation that we can do. I haven't seen an accommodation yet that has not been able to be met in the virtual environment. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so if a student has an IEP or 504 plan and accommodations need to be met in the virtual classroom, it's very easy to do. And a lot of accommodations are already inherent in virtual learning, so we'll talk about that as well, and how the LMS systems more and more are becoming aware of the accommodations that need to be met in the virtual classroom so that special education students can get the services that they need. For many students with disabilities, this is the key to having classroom success, is to have their accommodations and modifications met in a way that helps them be successful. So some accommodations are very simple, such as a change of environment or allowing more time on an exam. Other accommodations or modifications like specially designed instruction or needing a test being read. It's a little trickier in the virtual classroom, but I'll give you some tips tonight on how to do that. So let's talk a little bit about LRE, or least restrictive environment. I truly believe that a student in a virtual classroom along with his or her peers is in the least restrictive environment. There's a level of confidentiality as well that comes with working with a student one-on-one, working with that family to administer the accommodations to make sure their needs are being met, that gives them a feeling that their needs are being taken care of in a confidential manner. The other students are not aware, for example, in an LMS system, that a student may need more time. They're not being kept in at recess. They're not being taken to another location where they can be supervised. It's just a matter of going into their quiz or test and adding more minutes onto their time and making sure that accommodation is met. It's very easy to do, and the student doesn't feel like they're singled out because of that accommodation. So let's talk a little bit about terminology. So we have kind of three levels. We have supports, we have modifications, and we have accommodations. Okay, so modification is actually a change in what is being taught or what is expected from the student. So for example, maybe making an assignment easier or not doing the same level of work as another student would be an example of a modification. An accommodation is more of a change that helps level the playing field for that student. Okay, for example, if a student has difficulty reading, they have a reading disability, the teacher may read the test to the student. That does not change the actual test. The test is still the same items being assessed as the other students. It's just a change in the way it's delivered to help level the playing field. So that student is hearing the exam orally while the other students are reading it. So it doesn't mean that that student is necessarily getting an advantage over the other students. It's just a format delivery change. So that's what we mean by accommodation. It doesn't fundamentally change what is being assessed or what is being expected of the student. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the different types of supports in special education. And one is specially designed instruction. And specially designed instruction is a certain number of minutes or class period time that the student works with the teacher and to ensure that they have access to the curriculum. So this can absolutely be done in the virtual environments. So using web conferencing program or even Google Hangouts or some kind of WebEx, Skype, maybe Blackboard Collaborate or Illuminate, some kind of web conferencing program, the teacher can meet one-on-one with a student and provide the specially designed instruction. Now, some students only need specially designed instruction maybe in one area, such as math or reading supports. Other students may need it in more than one areas. It just depends on the student and the accommodations needed in their IEP, what supports are needed. Okay, then there's the modifications of instruction as to what is being taught and how the child is taught. So for example, this type of adaptation could be a shortening of assignments. So instead of the student doing all of the problems, so they do 20 algebra problems that are assessing the same type of skill, maybe that child would only do 5 to show his knowledge. And if he showed his knowledge and he was able to show mastery of those 5 problems, then it would be considered an equivalent. So it's a shortening of things. It could be having the test not only read but explained, which is another layer of that. So they're having things explained to them while the test questions are read. Okay, so scheduling. Scheduling requires extra time, which is very easily met in the virtual environment. So most LMS systems now have a way to either extend time on assignments without the other students knowing, which is very nice. It provides that other extra layer of confidentiality for the student. You're able to go in there, add minutes to their quiz or their test, and they're able to have a time extension. You can also maybe break it into multiple days. Now this one's a little bit harder. So let's say that the child needs the test broken down in over a period of 2 days, or maybe just take one section at a time. That works as well. You just have to make sure that you're able to open up that test again in the LMS system without it resetting all the assignments, all the answers. That has happened to me sometimes. So what I've done before is I've graded like part of the test, and then made sure that that score and those answers were set, and then I gave the student another part the second day, and then maybe the third day a different part. So they took it in chunks to break it up. So that's a scheduling accommodation, which we most certainly can do. Extra time is no problem, and also you can extend time on assignments. So if a student needs, let's say, double the time to complete everything, you can leave an assignment open for 2 weeks instead of 1 week, so that that accommodation is met. Okay, small groups. This is very easy to do in the virtual environment. A lot of students need a change in the way the instruction is administered. So they might feel that a large group is hard for them to work in. They may get distracted, or it may be hard for them to focus. So working in small groups would be good for them, or one-on-one with a teacher, and that's where the web conferencing programs come in. Or if you're in a blended program, they can do that accommodation in a face-to-face environment where they can sit with the teacher for a certain amount of time and get the instruction that they need. All right, another accommodation is in terms of what materials are being used. So if the student is in the online environment but is finding that the materials are not suited for them, they're not in compliance with their IEP, we need to find a workaround. So for example, computer reading is very different from reading from a book. They may have an ebook, or they may have a lot of print on the screen that could be hard on their eyes, especially if they have a visual impairment, and they may need a physical book. They may need a hard textbook, which you can certainly provide for them, or they may need a larger print. Larger print is easily done by adjusting the settings on your computer display screen. So you can teach the student how to do that, or teach the family how to do that, and make sure the screen is set up properly. They also, you may be able to provide the book in an audio version. So they may get a CD of the book, or they may be able to listen to podcasts if your publisher provides those. And that's an accommodation that can help as well. They may need a Braille form of the book. They also have programs that can read the text on the screen. And more, the LMS systems are building in text-to-voice programs so that the material on the screen can be read to the student and the accommodation can be met. Okay, so the next type of accommodation is done in terms of using technology. For example, let's say that a student needed to give an answer orally instead of typing it out. Well, that can be done a couple ways. You can do that in the virtual conferencing. You can meet with the student and have them give the answers orally, especially if they have difficulty writing. Or you can do that through podcast programs. So I know Canvas has this, and another number of LMS systems have podcast programs where you can upload sound recordings to a quiz or a test and provide oral answers if the student has difficulty writing, or in this case, typing. Okay. All right, change of environment. A lot of times students need a quiet place to study, and this would be considered an accommodation in the classroom. Let's say they needed a separate location, they have a difficult time concentrating in a large group, especially in a testing setting. So they need an accommodation to be taken to a quiet area. Well, when the student is in their home and doing blended learning or fully virtual learning, this can be met easily by working with the families. And sometimes the home environment is not the quietest environment. There could be dogs and doorbells and you know, the postal service coming to the door. So it's not necessarily the best environment for the students, so you have to work with the families. Sometimes I know we would recommend that on testing days, the student would go to the library and have a nice private room, and they could take their quiz or their test there, and then they would do their other regular homework at home in their home environment. So it just depends on the situation, but work with your families. Sometimes they would prefer a computer lab at the school if there's supervision and staffing to help with that. Sometimes they that would be the best environment for a testing situation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about related services. Some of these services may be required by law for the particular IEP. So the virtual schools can absolutely have these, or contract out with a professional service to administer those. So these could include language services, speech and language, physical therapy, recreation, counseling services, medical services or diagnostic, and social work. And for virtual school administrators, they really have to work with either their sponsoring district or with outside professional services to contract those to make sure that they are in compliance and make sure those students get the services that they need. So that's something that the administration has to work out and have in place ahead of time to make sure that they have those contacts in the community to be able to administer those professional services. Larger virtual schools can do those in-house if there's enough support for that professional in the district. They can do those in-house if they have enough students to have a psychologist on staff, maybe one that even works at the school 1 day a week or 2 days a week or rotates between certain schools. All right, IEP meetings. IEP meetings can most certainly be done in a web conferencing environment. It could be a little tricky. Sometimes the documents need to be sent out ahead of time for the families to sign and return. So it just depends on how the school wants it. Very important considerations are confidentiality. You want to make sure the web conferencing program is password protected, and you want to be careful of recordings and things like that to make sure that you're in compliance with confidentiality rules for IEPs. You want to make sure that the web program is secure, so it's password protected, just to make sure that everyone's protected. And you most certainly can have the parents and the students in on an IEP meeting when appropriate. That way you have everyone in attendance. And the classroom teachers, of course, as needed to be there, and the administrators as well. So it most certainly can be done in a web conferencing program. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of tries to make sure that everyone has the technology to use the program, and then scheduling issues and various things that need to go into that. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. First of all, I'm going to pause for questions because that's what I had about special education accommodations. And we'll talk a little bit about at-risk students, and then we're going to talk a few minutes about gifted students as well. So we'll pause for questions. And if there's no questions, we'll go on to at-risk students. And there should be a Q&A. If you're writing questions on the events page, I will try to look out for that as well. And it looks like we're good. All right, let's talk a little bit about at-risk students. I've worked mainly in high schools with at-risk populations. However, at-risk students could be considered students of any age level, any grade level. So as far as high school, though, the definition of at-risk, I've heard various definitions that are good and not so good. It just depends. But at-risk really is referring to at risk of what? Of not completing their education. But there's so much more to that. They could be in situations where they're homeless, or they have severe medical issues, or they're taking care of family or small children. There's so many layers that go along with it, that the students come to virtual schools to help finish their education based on their life circumstances. The biggest reason they come to virtual schools is for flexibility. For some reason, either traditional school is not working for them, they are not being successful, or they simply can't get there. For some reason or other, due to medical issues, due to family responsibilities, they may have to work at a very young age. They may be taking care of older family members, or have children of their own as young adults that they need to take care of. So they need flexibility in helping to complete their education, and virtual schools can absolutely do that. My inbox used to be flooded with success stories of students that graduated who could never have done so if they were in the traditional classroom. They had to work at a very young age, and they would do the online school at night or on the weekends to earn their credits for high school, and they were able to graduate. So a lot of times, though, these students may have irregular academic histories. They may have attended several schools. They may have moved several times, and so their credits are piecemealed together. And this is where virtual schools are wonderful, because the student can have consistency from semester to semester because they're in a virtual environment. As long as they have internet access, they're able to stay at the same school and not have to move just because they are outside of district boundaries or they had to stay with a relative for a short amount of time. They're able to have consistency in their schoolwork. And a lot of times internet access is a barrier for these students. They may be in a state where they're not able to pay for it, or they don't have family members that are able to pay for their internet, and this is where they need a lot of support. So I used to work with these students and make sure that they had access to internet somehow. We would work with libraries, with local school computer labs. We would work with adult schools, make sure that these students had internet access on a consistent basis. So sometimes they say, well, I can go to a coffee shop down the street or something, but long term, that's really hard to do. You know, on a daily basis, if they're going to school a very long time, it's better if they had a local library or even a local community college that would agree to give them privileges to use their libraries and computer lab facilities so that they were able to work. It can be a big obstacle. Another obstacle could be the software that they have on their computer. So they may not have Microsoft Word, so PDF is the best way to go with assignments. You don't want to give them projects that require Microsoft Office. You want to use Open Docs, Google Docs. Open Office is a great resource to have, at least that they're able to do those word processing things, and flexibility is what they need. So a student wouldn't be able to open a document, or they didn't have a certain program that they needed, I would provide an alternate assignment. Okay, so you can't type it on a Word document, that's fine, no problem. Why don't you just type it in this text box? I would create a question for them and open up a text box, and they would be able to type their responses there. So really, it's a matter of listening to their needs, finding out what their challenges are, and then providing a workaround for those students so that they're able to be successful. And the last thing that they need really is more barriers for their education. Their life circumstances have brought them to this point, and they need someone that'll open doors for them, not close them. So you know, a teacher that says, well, no, we can't do it this way, I'll only accept it in this form, those provide more barriers for those students, and really it's just work around, work around, work around. Okay, so the local library will only let you stay 1 hour at a station to do your work. Let me give them a call and see if they're willing to let you stay, you know, 2 or 3 hours. So I've been known to work with librarians to provide workarounds for students, as long as the student is working and is on the correct web pages and using the computer for educational purposes. The librarians were usually fine with that, and they could call me up whenever they needed. So really, really good things for at-risk students. Okay, let's talk a little bit about gifted students. And gifted students use the internet for a variety of reasons. A lot of times gifted students want to take classes in an area of interest that is not provided by their school. So for example, they're at a school, they don't have enough people to have an AP music class run, but they have a very strong interest in music. So they can take an AP music class online. So it opens doors for them that before were geographically impossible. They would have to find a school with an AP music program, or they'd have to move out of the area. So they would have to go to great lengths. Now they can look up a class, take it online, and they could either supplement their schooling, or if their counselor works with them at their high school, they're able to transfer the credits into that class and accelerate their education. And I've had many, many students take AP classes on their own outside of their normal school schedule and take the tests on their own and be able to get college credit for that. And not all universities are okay with that. They have to check with the counselor at the university first to make sure that that's okay, but usually the high school counselors will let them, will accept those credits if the institution is accredited, but always, always check with the counselors before. Another advantage for gifted students is to be able to accelerate their learning. So they're able to take areas of interest that they have, and they're able to just accelerate maybe to a higher level or to a deeper level than they're getting at their traditional schools, and hopefully supporting what they're doing in the classroom, so that way they're able to enhance and enrich their education. A lot of times gifted students have very specific areas that they're gifted in, such as music or athletics or mathematics, and it opens up doors. I've had a lot of virtual school students that were aspiring athletes or musicians, and they wanted to free up their time during the day so that they can train and practice, and they would do their schoolwork in the evenings and weekends. So they had a performance coming up. They would need to put in a practice week. And I would work around their schedule. They would work early in the morning or later at night to get their schoolwork done so that way they can pursue their dreams. So it's wonderful for students with musical talent or aspiring Olympians, and they're able to pursue their dreams without having to go to a classroom. A lot of I live in the Los Angeles area, so I know virtual schooling also works well with aspiring young actors and actresses. They're able to be a little bit more flexible with their while pursuing their dreams. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up for question and answer. We'll spend about 5 more minutes on our Q&A. And I just want to thank everyone for participating in the course. I really hope you got a lot out of the course, Performance and Assessment in the Virtual Classroom. This is, I think, our 4th offering of the class, and we continue to get high enrollment and great feedback. So I'm really hoping that you enjoyed it and you found it a worthwhile experience. So we'll spend a few minutes waiting for questions. And I know some of you are in different time zones as well. I'm going to go check the Google's events page to see if we have any questions there. And it looks like we're good. Let me just refresh it. I think we're okay. So what I will do is I will send out the link before the session is over. Just some things that you need to know about the class. The class ends officially Monday or Sunday night at midnight. So do make sure you have everything in, including the last quiz. So you have your 5 weekly quizzes and then your big final quiz at the end, but don't worry, you get 3 chances to take it. The peer assessment has already closed. So hopefully you were able to get that in on time, and then you should be good to go for the class. So Sunday night, midnight, but don't forget the time zone issue. So if you're in a different time zone, please allow. We're in PDT, Pacific time. And make sure that you get those in. Let's see, and Monica has a question. No, I have not, but I am very interested in this area, and there are so many adaptive technology programs out there for students who are visually impaired that I am very interested in that area. So lots and lots of speech-to-text programs and text-to-speech that can help with that, and maybe accommodations would be Braille books or lots of audio tools. I know that a lot of the ebooks right now that are out there, they offer audio versions of their books that you can either order or that come standard with it. More and more, the ebooks are becoming interactive. I don't know if you've noticed that, but a student is able to highlight text and then have it read to them. So that would be one thing they could do with an aid, or you know, if they had the proper programs on the computer, they could learn how to navigate that, and they're able to do that. There are keyboards as well out there that have the Braille symbols, and the student is able to type. Absolutely amazing. The sky's the limit. Yeah, I had a colleague that did worked with adaptive technology, and we even had she even had calculators that would say the answer. So they would punch it in. They would have raised numbers on the calculator, so they were able to fill the numbers, and it would read them the answer, read them whatever they type in, and then read the solution to them. It was just amazing, amazing. So it absolutely can be done. All right, all good. Okay, so I will send out this recording over the next couple days, and I'll send out one final message before the class closes. But thank you. I wish you all the best in your pursuit of virtual education. All right, good night.